Hello, my name's Bond, Richard Bond, and this is Curmudgeonly Yours, a show on Society Bites Radio, part of the Radio Ear Network family, supplying social interaction for the mind and soul. The introductory and concluding music to this show is La Polonaise by Wieniawski, played by Max Bond. I am your host and curmudgeon, where everything is what it seems. Nothing is what it seems. And what is not said is often of most interest. Today, my guest is Robert Spence, and he's going to talk to us about Trump and journalism bias, part 2. Hi, Robert.
How you doing?
Pretty well, thanks. Robert Spence has spent most of his life as a health administrator, but also as a medic and operating room technician during the height of the Vietnam War. In 1967, Robert was drafted twice into the U.S. Army, getting a deferment for college in March, but finally drafted in December 67 before he had even finished his semester. In those days, not everyone could get college deferments like Clinton, Howard Dean, or even Trump. For over a year during 1969 to 1970, Robert served his country in the 3rd Surgical Hospital in the Mekong Delta in Vietnam. When he returned from the war, he obtained his bachelor's and master's degree in health administration from the State University of New York at Stony Brook in 1974. Robert worked as an OR tech at the hospital for 5 years and then spent over 28 years in the NYS docks as health administrator in Clinton CF at 2800 inmate maximum security prison. After 78 years at the facility, he was promoted to Assistant Director of Health Services for all of New York State's 70 prisons in 1989, which meant that 19 of his 28 years in corrections were spent as the Assistant Director of Health Services. Robert, we talked late last year about Trump and journalism bias, part 1, but we were not able to get to all the questions. I'm happy we can renew our conversation. Donald Trump has been much maligned in the press and the Democratic Party about his stance on health care. Since you are a health administrator, I was wondering if you'd comment on one of Trump's signature campaign promises before John McCain put the kibosh on it in order to maintain Obamacare. What is the state of American health care today? And throughout Democratic and Republican administrations over the years, we have never, ever seen the price of health care go down. When will this happen? If ever, will it go down?
Well, of course not. But first of all, McCain put the kibosh on the entire plan. However, what Trump did is take away the mandate to maintain that program, which was a tax, really. And I know some young folks who got taxed every year on it and hated it because they didn't have health care. They didn't want it. So that took the wind out of the sails of Obamacare. So basically, it has no legs to stand on. It's slowly falling apart. But there are people that have it and want to keep it. But healthcare in general never gets cheaper. Access gets worse. And the more government control you have over it, the less access you have and less freedoms you have. Even today, when I work for the state, of course, I worked in a correctional environment where it's a controlled system, but access was poor because no one wanted to treat inmates. But in general, in my own perspective, with Florida and anywhere else, it's getting tougher to see specialists. The wait is longer. My costs don't go down, but people's costs go up. And that's because of the more regulation, the more government, the less freedom of control you have over your own health care. So in general, I don't think it'll ever go down.
Well, what do you think about the private sector? I mean, these private insurance companies, don't you think they have something to do with it?
Yeah, no, the insurance companies, if they were let to be insurance companies in general, they can't even cross state lines to be, the states decide who can come in, et cetera. And the feds told them that, which was wrong because part of a reimbursement for healthcare for any doctor or physician is federal and state. So they had to comply with both laws. So I think 40% of a healthcare bill is administration, For every doctor, there's at least 3 or 4 people in administration working on the paperwork. And there's more and more and more. And as a senior citizen, when I go and see my doctor, there's more questions, less time, and he doesn't have the time to see. So I go in there knowing medicine and knowing what to do. I go in there with my questions, and I know exactly what to ask them. Not sit there and they ask questions that they're mandated to ask by the government now for Alzheimer's and for domestic abuse, and is there a gun in the house? And sometimes I don't even answer the question, but it's just become more political and more bureaucratic, unfortunately.
Right. Well, that sort of gets rid of my question number 2. So I'm going to go on to 3. I'm going to say I wanted to know, Robert, we're already into the 2019 hurricane season, and with respect to last year's hurricanes, Trump was severely criticized about his coverage of Puerto Rico. You remember the actual event mortality plus the excess mortality went from 20 to 3,000. In any event, the anti-Trump press made a very big deal about this and said Trump's tweets and remarks were one of Trump's 5,000 plus lies. Your thoughts on this media bias?
Well, first of all, media bias will never stop. And I'll tell you why. Because he is not a member of the ruling class, and he must be treated not as president, he has to be treated as an imposter who got in under the wire. He wants to get rid of the swamp. He's not like them. He doesn't need the money. He doesn't get a salary. So he doesn't play by the same rules. So they will never stop. And left-wing media is in cahoots with the Democrats. And because everything is leaked to the Democrats, from the Democrats to the media and vice versa. So there's a coordinated campaign, and it's continuing today. I mean, I'm sure you know the recent news. It's never going to. But Trump is what I call a counterpuncher. He really doesn't initiate most things. He fires back.
Right.
And sometimes it doesn't sound right, but his base has not been eroded. And one day in Florida, when he came down, and I think last month for a rally, he raised the most money of any political candidate ever in one day, $24 million.
Jeez.
So there's a lot of support behind him that you don't know about unless you watch Fox News or, I tried not to listen to other news. I never really did. So I like the mute button a lot.
Well, I'm going to read you, it'll take 3 minutes, but I'm going to read you from this thing that you sent me over the internet called I'm Tired. And it's okay, and it's called I'm 73. Except for one semester in college when jobs were scarce and a 6-month period when I was between jobs, but job hunting every day, I've worked hard since I was 18. Despite some health challenges, I still put in 50-hour weeks and haven't called in sick in 7 or 8 years. I make a good salary, but I didn't inherit my job or my income, and I worked to get where I am. Given the economy, there's no retirement in sight, and I'm tired, very tired. I'm tired of being told that I have to spread the wealth, quote unquote, to people who don't have my work ethic. I'm tired of being told the government will take the money I earned by force if necessary and give it to people too lazy to earn it. I'm tired of being told that Islam is a religion of peace, when every day I can read dozens of stories of Muslim men killing their wives, sisters, and daughters for their family, quote, honor, of Muslims rioting over some slight offense, of Muslims murdering Christian and Jews because they aren't believers, of Muslims burning schools for girls, of Muslims stoning teenage rape victims to death for adultery, of Muslims mutilating the genitals of little girls, all in the name of Allah, because the Quran and Sharia law tells them to. I'm tired of being told that out of tolerance for other cultures, we must let Saudi Arabia use our oil money to fund mosques and madrasa Islamic schools, to preach hate in America and Canada, while no American nor Canadian group is allowed to fund a church, synagogue, or religious school in Saudi Arabia to teach love and tolerance. I'm tired of being told I must lower my living standard to fight global warming, which no one is allowed to debate. And I'm tired of being told that drug addicts have a disease and I must help, support, and treat them and pay for the damage they do. Did a giant germ rush out of a dark alley, grab them, and stuff white powder up their noses while they tried to fight it off? I'm tired of hearing wealthy athletes, entertainers, and politicians of both parties talking about innocent mistakes, stupid mistakes, or youthful mistakes when we all know they think their only mistake was getting caught. I'm tired of people with a sense of entitlement, rich or poor. And I'm real tired of people who don't take responsibility for their lives and actions. I'm tired of hearing them blame the government or discrimination or big whatever for their problems. Yes, I'm tired. But I'm also glad to be 73 because mostly I'm not going to have to see the world these people are making. I'm just sorry for my granddaughters and grandsons. And this is written by Robert A. Hall, who is a Marine Vietnam veteran who served 5 terms in the Massachusetts State Senate. So, what do you think of that?
Well, my sentiments exactly, and hoorah, Marine. And interesting, he talks about it at the end there, because his daughter and granddaughter is exactly where I am today. I'm upstate in New York with my granddaughters and daughter, trying to educate her because they don't listen to the news or anything. But she has common sense values and information about. She goes, "What's this LGBTQ stuff, and why is that person there with the soccer woman? Why is she not? You know, they don't. They
Well, Megan Rapinoe.
Yeah, the sentiment he expresses is agreed to by millions of Americans, and all you got to do is watch a Trump rally. His base has never eroded so far. In fact, his numbers, I don't like to read the polls, but the polls say such and such. The polls don't mean anything, but he's got to win a certain number of states. But there will be, the left is going so far left. We're all sick of it. Everybody I talk to in my circle of friends is they're just sick of it. And they're just sick of hearing America being torn down. But I remember when it's all about borders, language, and culture. And if a country doesn't have those three, they're not a country. Just like in France, you got too many people trying to inculcate their culture in yours and overtake yours, and that's not right.
Right.
Assimilate.
Well, recently, a Fox journalist, Tucker Carlson, who I consider to be rather bright, I read one of his books there, is pretty good, has been credited with changing President Trump's mind about bombing Iran in the recent thing, for downing the unmanned drone. Do you think President Trump did the right thing by not bombing Iran, and how did the left-wing media react to this event?
I think I agree that he probably did the right thing because there was no people involved. If there was a plane up there and people were killed, he would have definitely done something more than just nothing. But at the last minute, he asked the question. He was interviewed on Fox News. He was asked the question, "Why didn't you do it?" He says, "Because at the last minute, I wanted to know how many people would be killed with this bombing." And they said up to 150. And he said, no. He said, there's no reason. And he knows that once we start something, it's a creep, just like we're still in Afghanistan. And especially with Iran, they're so crazy. I mean, they're nonstop. And of course, the media blamed him for not doing anything, and they were blaming him before for doing something. So you're not going to win with the media. They're never going to stop. And they're all in cahoots because some of them, especially on the major shows, have relatives, wives, or husbands who work for the Democrats and work with the Democrats. So it's like George Stephanopoulos and Chuck Todd. They're all Democrats. One worked for Clinton, one worked for another Democratic senator. So they all have a bias. They try to show they don't. Anyway, but he did the right thing. He's letting them get some rope, and they're doing more. Just heard today, they just commandeered another oil tanker or something like that. So the problem is with the coalition, and the only ones that are really strong enough are the Brits. And,
they're the only ones coalescing with a coalition, right?
Yeah, the rest are just talking like the typical BS from the European Union, and the leftists, they're lefties too. Well, it doesn't mean that Iran did not want to do this. I mean, what are you? I just started one this morning. This woman from the EU saying, just because Iran is getting more nuclear material, it does not show their intention that they want to build a bomb. Well, okay. No, it's just, I don't understand that mentality. But I guess this appeasement doesn't go anywhere. When you appease people, they just laugh at you. And they do more. Yeah. That's why I think Trump is like Reagan. So.
Sure. So he like trust but verify. He's doing a lot of verifying. That's what you think.
Exactly.
Okay. What about this new field of Democrat candidates we have? Any thoughts in any or all of them? Are any of them any good? And despite the polls, can any of them really beat Trump?
Well, it's interesting. None of them, in my opinion, are any good. They're all leftists, and they don't have any ideas about how to make America a good country like Trump does. Trump's very simple and not complicated. Make America great. Go back to the values that we had, and let's just build our country up. We've been screwed over by many countries with these trade deals. Democrats, all they want to do is criticize. They don't have any policies, zero. And if one says, let's give free